So welcome everyone to the Preschool Neuroscience Summit. Today I'm really excited to introduce you to Mary Gordon. Mary Gordon is an award-winning social entrepreneur, educator, author, and parenting expert. She has an international children's charity, Roots of Empathy and Seeds of Empathy, and her work has been recognized by the UN, the WHO, the Dalai Lama, and she's been honored with the Governor General of Canada Award for Innovation, and just done so much for the field of early years with her programs. Her book, Roots of Empathy, Changing the World Child by Child, we'll have a link to that in her speaker bio, as well as links to her website and social media. And we're just going to play a little video here to give you some context before we jump into the interview. So welcome, Mary, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be with you.
Babies are 100% accepting and they don't judge. We know that babies love people regardless of how they behave. Their superpower is that they can make you love them. With the help of an instructor, children observe the most powerful relationship in the lifespan. The research calls it the attachment relationship between a parent and a baby. And the children spend time every month with that baby from the time the baby's 2 months old right to the end of school. And they study that baby. They learn about what the baby's feeling. The children fall in love with the baby and they learn a lot about love from the baby, and they learn about all their feelings. And then they learn how to have those same feelings for other people. Children are the citizens, the parents, and the leaders of tomorrow. And if we want them to grow up, to be healthy, to be mentally well, to be empathic, we need to start today because they will change the world.
So Mary, can you explain to us the Roots of Empathy program and how it works?
Sure. Well, the program entails bringing a tiny infant from the community along with the parent to be part of one classroom for the baby's first year of life. So starting at about 2 months of age, the parent and baby work with an instructor that we have trained. And the instructor has an award-winning curriculum which is specialized to either kindergarten or primary or junior or senior level, 4 different age levels. And the idea is that over the course of the year, the children are coached to observe that little baby's development in all domains and to observe the relationship between the baby and the mother, so the growing attachment relationship. And the idea is that when children can see one version of what love looks like and understand a baby's feelings, because it's very easy to coach children to read a baby's body language, to understand their facial expressions and vocalizations. We use that to teach emotional literacy. And that is what we consider the affective side of empathy. So we are fostering the development of empathy in children. So that is how they develop affective empathy. The perspective taking, as they are coached to observe what's the baby's intention and where is the baby looking, what do you think the baby's thinking, all of those things foster cognitive empathy. So by the time you get to 3/4 of the way through the school year, behavior has changed in the classroom. And children are understanding themselves and understanding one another. So there's 29 classes over the year, and the baby comes basically 9 times, and we have preparatory sessions, and then we have follow-up sessions, so the children are really learning all about executive function skills without knowing it. They're learning about metacognition without knowing it. So it's a lot of fun, and we're very research driven, and they see the baby go through all of the milestones. And of course, everything that happens on this green blanket, we pitch back to the children's experience. So
Wow.
it's joyful.
Um, yes. Yeah, sounds wonderful. What a great unique experience for young children and the mothers, I think, to participate in. So tell us about the other program, Seeds of Empathy, which is for children in childcare.
Yes, Seeds of Empathy is for 3 to 5 year old children. And the idea is that we use the baby and the parent because of the power of that first relationship, that attachment relationship. And we help children understand the attunement between the mother and the baby. And even 3 year olds get this. Children know when they're in the presence of love. And the whole idea of Seeds of Empathy and Roots of Empathy was to break intergenerational cycles of violence and poor parenting. And we do this by the cultivation of empathy. And empathy is in all of us at birth, but it's in that first year, in what I am postulating anyway, that it either blossoms or fades. So we want every child to have the opportunity to develop empathy. So for Seeds of Empathy, clearly where the children are little, we have smaller time frames for working around not a green blanket, but a lavender blanket. And we also have a lot of focus on early literacy skills. So they're developing emotional literacy along with traditional literacy. And we're not teaching phonics or letter recognition, we're teaching love of reading, love of speaking, listening, cultivating all those skills in little children that will make them fearless learners for the rest of their school life. Because what happens in this 3 to 5 year old period is that children decide if learning is for them or not. They make decisions about themselves in terms of how smart they are or not. And we could not hold back from working with early childhood educators because there's such power there. What's different about Seeds of Empathy is that we work with a whole child care center. We do a training with everybody, and then we specialize. Two people actually become the literacy coach, working with a series of 20 books and activities following all of these books that bring in domains of music, art, movement, reflection, all these kinds of things. And then we have one person who's the family guide, who works very closely with that family and delivers to the whole child care center the Seeds of Empathy family visit. We have smaller little lavender blankets that children gather around for the literacy circles. And the idea is intimacy. We want them to be able to physically touch the early childhood educator because we believe in the power of touch and the enormous power of the relationship the early childhood educator has with the children as the vehicle for the children's learning and loving. So it's great fun.
Sounds amazing and so important, so important. So tell us a little bit more about early childhood educators and how they can cultivate this relationship of empathy with the young children that they're working with.
Well, I think the first thing I would like to say is that I've worked with thousands of early childhood educators. Everybody comes with good heart. We have, without question, in the field a patchwork of experience, but good heart. And I have to say, it's the most important ingredient. We can offer everybody professional development. There's many opportunities to develop. But the core of the power of the early childhood centers, really, apart from Seeds of Empathy, is the relationship that the early childhood educator has with the children. Because little ones, if you look at their brain development, at birth, you can't tease apart cognition and emotion in the brain. And still in the early years, there's a very, very close relationship between learning and feeling, if I put it that way. And early childhood educators very often love children into learning. And that is devalued in society, and I'm just raising the flag for it, because if little children feel that they are accepted, respected, and loved, and I say that loudly, we should love our children. It doesn't make you unprofessional if you love them. It makes you heartless if you don't. So the idea that the power of the early childhood educator would be in their being able to read the children's emotional cues, their being able to understand misbehavior in terms of, is this a child who is dysregulated and doesn't know what to do? Is this a child who's got so much toxic stress in their life that they are out of control? Whatever a child's misbehavior is, it's a very clear message to all the adults in the room that this child is crying out for help, because behavior is a child's feeling in action. And if we take the mindset that when a child is causing grief, hurting other children, or making it impossible to conduct the events of the day, quite typically that child is suffering from toxic stress. And we need to be saying to ourselves, not what's wrong with you, which is our natural inclination, but what early childhood educators do so beautifully. They probably say to themselves, what has happened to you? And they take an empathic approach to try and understand the child. So you develop empathy more or less by modeling. There is no flashcard. There is no instruction. Empathy is about construction. How do you construct it out of your lived experiences? So little children who are around empathic behavior and who experience empathy, that someone understands them and feels with them, because that's what empathy is. Early childhood educators are super well equipped to do this. It's just we don't tell them that they've got their PhD in empathy. We need to unfold and unpack what it is enables children to become more empathic. It's being with empathic people, and it's being treated empathically. So children watch everything we do. You know, early childhood educators are so quick to appreciate that children notice if it's a woman that they've got a new hairstyle, or they're wearing new earrings, or they've got a bracelet on. Children miss nothing, but they also don't miss our glances, things we choose to not respond to, things we do respond to. They learn from us what we value, and they try to match what we value. So when early childhood educators value each person, hear each person, respect each person, and the staff respect one another and act empathically to one another, that's how little children develop empathy.
Yeah. So wonderful. Yeah, I think that embodiment of all of these kind of skills is so important for young children to witness and model. So tell us a little bit about when did you start these empathy programs? And I know you're kind of in so many countries. Tell us about which countries you were in and what languages you've had the program translated into.
Well, I started the program, it's 25 years ago now, in Toronto, Canada. And it grew slowly but surely across every province. We have 10 provinces and territories in Canada, and it is represented throughout Canada. Canada is a bilingual country, so we operate in English and French. And also in Canada, we have First Nations, Métis, and Inuit cultures, and we operate in all of them as well. So some of the programs are delivered in more or less the native languages. Then we started spreading across other jurisdictions. We're in the United States in 5 states. We are, our latest place is Korea and Norway. Now that's chalk and cheese, but there are 2 latest. We're in 14 countries. We work formally in 7 languages, but we also work in Welsh, which is not included in that. And we also work in Ireland. There's a resurgence in interest in their native tongue, which used to be called Gaelic, but now it's called, politically, it's described as Irish, speaking Irish. So many of our programs are delivered beautifully in Irish. And we had the most lovely experience 2 years ago. We have one of our people in communication who's very talented and very interested in the languages, she taped 14 or maybe even 15 different versions of our welcome song to the baby and put them all together in one tape, basically to say the children are the children are the children. That there is one experience of childhood, even though the landscape is different in every place. The emotional development of children is absolutely the same now as it ever was, even though they'll be more tech savvy. So we're in these 14 countries, we're in all of these languages. We even make a difference between Swiss German and German. We're in Germany and Switzerland, and there's the same interest in the program. For example, in New Zealand, we've been there for 13 years. And there've only been, the prime ministers, there have not been a lot of them, but they've all been completely supportive of Roots of Empathy. And we have in the various countries different kinds of connections because every country is different. But I can tell you the experience in the classrooms of all of these countries is very similar. We have a very high implementation integrity commitment. And even though we translate not just the language, but the cultures, the implementation of the program is consistent enough that research all over the world, and we're very big proponents of research because the programs sound altogether too cute. You know, you might think it's a bit fluffy, talking about bringing a baby to school or to the childcare center. So we are absolutely scientifically proven. We did not start out because of science. We started out because we wanted to break injustice. But we subsequently are proven. So in every country, people have the same reaction to both Seeds of Empathy and Roots of Empathy. So we're just charmed. We see it as a bridge, which we often speak about. We have an annual research symposium and people come from all over the world to it. And the discussions we have are basically, everybody is saying the same thing.
A team of researchers from the Bern University of Applied Sciences conducted an experimental study in the canton of Zurich. For the study, 13 classes were selected to participate in Roots of Empathy. An additional 10 classes that did not participate were included. Empathy and aggressive behavior were similarly pronounced in both groups. The researchers then conducted surveys and tests in all classes over a period of 2 years. Once at the beginning of the school year before Roots of Empathy began, the second time at the end of the school year after completion of the program, and the third time a year later to assess any long-term effects. Let's take a look at the results. First, for empathy. The graph shows the extent of change for both groups, the Roots of Empathy classes and the control classes. Now let's see what happens after 1 year. Empathy has increased significantly in the Roots of Empathy group and remained almost constant in the control group. This does not change even 1 year after Roots of Empathy was completed. The empathy values are still significantly increased in the classes that participated in the program, while they remain almost unchanged in the control groups. The same now once again for aggression. After 1 year, the aggressive behaviors in the Roots of Empathy classes decreased on average, while they increased slightly in the control groups. 1 year after completion, these effects still persist. The differences between the groups have even increased slightly.
Why is it that neuroscientists are so interested in the impact of this program? What's happening around that?
It's interesting that neuroscientists have taken such an interest in Roots of Empathy because typically neuroscientists had nothing to do with school-based programs. But what has happened, because we did very early studies on the impact on children's behavior, their attitudes, all of these kinds of things, and because we were dealing with experiential learning, Alan Shore was one, Dr. Alan Shore out of California. He was one of the first neuroscientists that I met with in 1999. And he and I were presenting at the same time in Luxembourg at a World Health Organization conference. And when he heard a story that I told in the presentation, he came up to me afterwards and he said, the reason you are having this success is that the impact of Roots of Empathy has been biologically embedded in the children's brains. Well, that's a pretty scary thing to say. And anyhow, what he went on to explain was that the visceral experiences they were having with the baby, the fact that they followed the baby for a year, the fact that when the baby came each month, they would sing to the baby, and one by one, the baby would go around the circle, and each child would be able to look at the baby, hold the baby's feet, and have a connection with the baby. And that they were learning all of the things about the baby, like what frightened the baby, like what made the baby really happy, the baby's temperament traits, all of these kinds of things. So that what Dr. Shore was able to understand and explain to me is that the reason children's behaviors changed is because their brains changed. And the reason the impact of the program we subsequently had proven for us didn't end at the end of the school year. We had randomized longitudinal studies both in Canada and in Northern Ireland. Can you imagine in Northern Ireland where they have concerns about generational sectarian violence? They worked with 9-year-old children to see if it had an impact and would the impact last over time, and good morning. Same results, aggression, bullying down, pro-social skills, social emotional competence up. So the idea that the neuroscientists could see the impact of a program and could see that it lasted over time, suddenly I had a following. So when I started the research symposia in the mid-2000s and invited neuroscientists to come to speak, none of them said no. And we had top-rate names, and we are a charity. We have no hidden stores of cash. Right. So I would get some help to run the symposium, but the neuroscientists were absolutely amazing in their generosity because they were encouraging us. So when you have a program that has 96% implementation integrity, it allows you to be sure that what you're studying is a real deal and is replicated all over the world. Mm-hmm. So somebody said to me once, you are the musician's musician in terms of science. So we really appreciate that and are encouraged by that. And of course, that has a positive knock-on effect with other people trusting us. And we keep on doing this research. We just recently completed research, it's 2 years ago now, in Switzerland. The short clip you showed, Bern University in Switzerland, and showing, that aggression, bullying went down, stayed down, and social emotional competence went up. So I think the fact that after 25 years, we are always changing our program a little bit, but when you change it in one place, you change it everywhere. The fact that we have a 4-day training program, the fact that we have evaluation every year, every single child who can write, and if they can't write, they draw pictures. Every single child in all of these countries, in all of their languages, we ask them questions that are questions relate to our goals. What was your experience? What would you think? And we do the same with our instructors, with our volunteer parents, and with Roots of Empathy, the classroom teacher who hosts the program. They really know their children. Not only that, they know the children over the many years they've taught. So we really value and listen, and thank you, SurveyMonkey, because we take all of this and we put out a report every year to every jurisdiction, right, saying this is what everybody thought. So the researchers obviously appreciate the hardcore research, but they also appreciate that we survey every single year and we give the whole results out. So there is an integrity to what we do. If we get a bad result, we get a bad result. And the thing is, you don't usually get a bad result, but just let me share something with you in terms of the bad result idea. We have found that right across the world, children's capacity to understand how they feel is going down every year.
Right.
So we're trying harder and harder every year to make sure that that happens. There's something at work in the world. And it's the thing I worry about most, because our whole thesis is that when a child understands how they feel, they have the capacity then to understand how the other might feel, and then to feel with them, which is what empathy is. So there, you know, the whole world is on a downward slide in that. And I mean, possibly because of the current situation of the pandemic and Black Lives Matter, we might be able to have a more egalitarian world, to understand and appreciate one another a bit better, because we've had common problems. And now we have common outrage about injustice, and we've never had the whole world care about injustice at the same time. We might even push it into the climate concern. And of course, empathy is at the base of racism. It's at the base of any of the isms, and it's at the base at why should we care about other people, read the climate. So yeah, I'm very excited about working with the neuroscientists and learning from them.
Yeah, that's amazing, and amazing results. And I love that it's, you know, so systematic, and you can refer to what's happening in different places and see if that will work where you are. So, Mary, we're in the middle of this pandemic, which is, you know, unique in this, well, in our lives anyways. And how is that affecting your program and what you're teaching? I mean, you work a lot with young children, so I guess Zoom isn't ideal for this kind of a program. So what are you doing around that, and how do you see kind of empathy helping us in our post-pandemic world?
Well, like everybody else, we have had to pivot, that being the key word these days. We had to pivot from a very high touch experiential program to an online program in order to finish off in the parts of the world where we are, where the school year is September to June. We closed our doors in the middle of March, mainly. And of course, it was different in Costa Rica and in Korea and you know, New Zealand, etc. But so in doing that, you have lost the biggest power of our program, which is experiential learning. And what we decided to do, and I have to say there's an army of goodwill out there, because our instructors are volunteers, all of them. Nobody is paid. Our instructors do this all. We give them huge professional development and training, which they appreciate, but they're all volunteer. So what we asked them to do was to keep in touch with the parent, the Seeds of Empathy or Roots of Empathy parent they were working with, and to get videos and pictures following the baby's milestone development. You know, we want to see the new teeth. We want to see holding a spoon. We want to see crawling. We want to see standing up the first time they stand up. Not many of our babies walked by the end of the year, but there were 2 at least that I saw the videos. And we want to see their favorite lovey, their favorite stuffed toy. What's their transitional object? We wanted to see examples of object permanence. If you hid something, could they find it? Because the last time the children would have seen it, and we do these little scientific experiences that we hide a toy in the baby sees, and then we say to the children, will the baby know where it is? Because we only speak to the children with questions. It's a Socratic method. We don't tell the children things. We ask experiential questions that every child will be able to relate to, so that then the parent can show what the children wouldn't be able to show. And the complexity of this, so our people, mentors, work with the instructor. Then the instructor takes these pictures and videos and communicates with the teacher or the childcare center explaining, this is what we found out, could you share it with the children? Because we can't be directly in touch with the children at home.
Okay.
So although I have gone on some of the online classes,
Yes.
and they're so surprised, so the classroom teachers have been heroic in doing this, because normally the classroom teacher receives Roots of Empathy as a gift. They sit with the children and they're part of it. They don't have to do anything, because we want them to see their children as being wonderful. We want them to see their worst actor as being empathic. We want them to see the children at their best, and it really does work. So, for example, with the wishing tree, which is the final thing that we do in the final class, if we were in the classroom, every child in the pre-family visit, the week before the baby comes, we explain to them, we want you to make a wish for your baby, for what you would wish for the baby when the baby is your age. So, you might be 5, or, you might be 3 even. Even 3-year-olds can do it, or in seeds, or, you might be 12. And because we've talked to the children about intrinsic pride and intrinsic motivation, the children are aware that to be proud is bigger than ribbons and medals and trophies. To be proud of your character is what counts in life. And you can see that they have internalized that when they make their precious wishes for the baby. So the parents, the Roots of Empathy classroom teacher collects all the wishes that the children have sent in, sends them to the Roots of Empathy instructor, who constructs them on a tree that we've designed and sends it electronically back to the classroom for all the children to see their wishes together, because we would have had a big tree in the classroom, and sends the parents this classroom wishing tree for their baby. The feedback, the tears, the incredible reaction, because the children's wishes, regardless of their age, are heartbreakingly pure and inspirational. And we see the huge impact of COVID, because, the little ones say, I hope when you're my age, you don't get any bad virus that makes you not see your friends, not go to school. And I hope your grandma never gets dead. All kinds of things. And of course, the older children, 10, 11-year-olds, they say incredibly prophetic things like, I hope when you're my age that people in the world cooperate better. So we have a lot of hope. And the thing is, I think as a not-for-profit, working with limited budgets everywhere, you have to be nimble. And I'm a social entrepreneur, and I thrive on change. To me, it's not a big problem, it's a big challenge. And that's kind of the way our organization works. And everybody jumped on board, and we created small videos with 18 language translations, because we wanted it to be available to anybody. And 6 of those languages were indigenous languages. Cree, Ojibwe, many languages which normally would not be available to people. So we're trying to be equitable and trying to give parents very short messages of encouragement. And quite honestly, this whole time, because my early experience was working with domestic violence and child abuse and neglect, children who are at home with dysfunctional families where there's domestic violence or abuse, they've been incarcerated and eviscerated. And it's incredible to think of what they might be through. So we are very happy to come back online, because children's mental health and well-being, even in the most happy families, has been impacted. So we want to be able to bring them back and welcome them, whether it's online or a hybrid program or however we do it. We've created 3 new programs.
Wow, that's so wonderful to hear and to hear the children's voice, especially. As you say, they are the best teachers, sharing what the perspectives they have. And just want to say thank you for coming on the summit, and thank you so much for all the wonderful work that you're doing. I know our viewers will look forward to learning more. As I mentioned, we'll have the 2 videos. There's other videos and links that you can go on the website to learn more about the work that Mary Gordon and her team at Roots of Empathy are doing. But thank you so much for sharing all of that wonderful information and the impact that you're making on the world. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you, and it's been a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for the work you're doing additionally.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.